Welcome to What's the Story Dublin, the official Dublin City Council podcast with me, your host, Deirdre Malumbi. This podcast deep dives into the work of all the moving parts that make up Dublin City Council. It also shares news of the Council's latest initiatives and exciting events. In today's episode, we're looking at traffic and travel in Dublin City. I am joined today by Brendan O'Brien, who is Executive Manager of Traffic. Brendan, welcome to What's the Story Dublin podcast.
Thanks very much for having me this morning.
We're delighted, absolutely. Brendan, something we often like to open our podcasts with is what was the career path that actually led to your role as Executive Manager of Traffic here?
Well, I suppose the career path was through technology. I suppose my original degree was in IT computing. Traffic and traffic signals, traffic systems are very heavily IT. So that was a natural kind of fit initially. And then later on to kind of balance it out, I did a master's in engineering to kind of take in some more of the different aspects of the work I was involved with. So I suppose that was a kind of progression on towards what I ended up doing and have been doing for a good number of years at this stage. So it's kind of trying to combine the technical aspects, the systems aspects, and then the more increasingly kind of human aspects.
Okay, that's really interesting. So your role is quite like technical and technologically driven, would you say, or?
Yeah, yes, it is. I suppose it's a mixture of things. There's certainly we have quite an extensive network system to manage the traffic throughout Dublin, and as a result, we have quite a range of professionals. Everybody from kind of IT professionals, data analysts, to civil engineers, to pure transportation people, and it requires a wide range of skills to actually manage and evolve. And so on. So there's an element of the technical aspects of it, and then there's an element of the kind of strategic, kind of forward thinking, forward planning.
Okay, great. And we'll kind of get into both, I think, through our questions today. What does your work consist of on a day-to-day basis?
Oh gosh, on a day-to-day basis, I suppose, it's rare that any 2 days are quite the same for a start, obviously. And because, my role is encompasses our traffic department, our public lighting, electrical service department. So there's quite a broad range of issues that come up from time to time. So I guess on a day-to-day basis, it's kind of trying to manage the interactions we have with so many other different agencies, so many other different people. The interactions we have, obviously, with our councillors, which are pretty important. And that can mean, everything from answering council questions to attending SPCs, area committees, that kind of thing, and the monthly city council meeting. But I suppose, as I mentioned, a really important element is actually the interaction with people like the National Transport Authority, the Transport Infrastructure Ireland, because obviously we have a whole range of really, really big projects which are planned to be implemented in Dublin, starting really now. And so that is, I suppose, one of the key aspects of it as we look at those big transport projects, is how both we prepare as DCC for dealing with those, but then there's a range of measures which we're implementing or have implemented to try and make the other big projects which will radically transform the whole of transportation in Dublin, trying to make those transportation projects easier to actually implement.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of moving parts. So let's start by talking a bit about kind of the strategic side of the work, which you mentioned there. Can you talk to us a bit about the Dublin City Transport Plan and how that informs your work?
Sure. So I suppose the Dublin City Centre Transport Plan is the latest iteration. So I suppose, we build on the back of a lot of different plans going back in back almost 40 years. So one of the key things that happened in Dublin, which kind of still informs all our thinking, is that the end of the 80s, start of the 90s, we had what's called the Dublin Transportation Initiative, which was a wide-ranging mix of everybody from the business to the local authorities and so on, just looking at Dublin and saying, the city is quite congested. How do we need to get out of this? And one of the key decisions that was made at the time was that Dublin as a city couldn't build its way out of congestion. It couldn't build enough roads for cars to actually solve this. And so the decision really at that stage was taken was to invest in things like the Lewis, the Dublin Port Tunnel, the bus lanes, the cycle tracks. And so out of that came that emphasis on trying to provide for the sustainable modes, the public transport, walking, cycling, while also putting in place things like, as I say, the Dublin Port Tunnel, the Mackin Street Bridge, the James Joyce Bridge. So a different infrastructure. But one of the key things that I suppose constrains us or guides us, guides us is a better way of putting it, was that decision that we couldn't build our way out of this issue for vehicles. So anything that we do, anything that we build has to be on the basis that we don't increase the number of vehicles coming into the city.
It's really interesting. It's fascinating when you look back on history, just how far we've come. I think that people sometimes forget that, Well,
I think they do. And, if we go back a little further, back at the turn of the 70s, the emphasis in Dublin was actually very much on coming up with plans to build our way out of congestion. And so there was plans drawn up, which involved building like really big dual carriageways through the heart of the city. So to give you some idea of what it would have looked like, St. Patrick's Cathedral would have had the equivalent of the Ballymun interchange outside its door. And right beside the forecourts, there would have been a high-level motorway bridge going across the river. So, fortunately, as an old colleague of mine said at the time, Dublin City Council didn't have the money to implement the plans, and by the time we had money, nobody liked those plans anymore. So they were never. There was little parts of them were implemented. The kind of Patrick Street widening was part of that plan. So that Patrick Street widening was originally meant to lead into this big, huge motorway type junction with overpasses and underpasses and so on. So really, that kind of decision, gives us the city that we have. And while, we all kind of complain about traffic and so on, there was another city which could have been created, which would have looked quite a lot different. And we're probably fortunate that we did miss that particular part, because a lot of other cities did go down where they would have bulldozed quite a lot of the historic parts for much wider, motorway type roads in the heart of the city.
Absolutely. I suppose that's something that you kind of have to consider constantly with your role. So do like policies and measures, other ones aside from the transport plan kind of inform your work? And I'd love as well if you could speak a bit to that, preserving history and preserving the city, because that's kind of something that's interesting and maybe sets Dublin City apart as well.
Yeah, so I suppose going back to the city centre transport plan, I suppose that's a joint collaboration between ourselves and the National Transport Authority. And I suppose, we had produced one back in 2016, which most people didn't really like that much, even though the one we produced in 2023 was still quite similar, a little more radical. But the difference this time is had the kind of mood music had changed. And I suppose, post-COVID, people had a lot more appreciation for their city, and also a lot more appreciation that, having been kind of, I suppose, stranded with that 2 kilometre exclusion, that they really started to appreciate what they had in their neighbourhoods. Working from home also means that they're there a lot more than they would have been previously. So people now, what we find is that people are much more interested in the neighbourhoods, the city, not as a place just to pass through, but as a place to actually stay, to live in, and what you need to actually be around those type of areas. So the City Centre Transport Plan took as its basis the City Development Plan, which is obviously the kind of guiding document from the city councillors. And within that document, within the 22 plan, they had set out some pretty ambitious targets for reducing car use in the city. They'd also set out an ambition to kind of move towards a low traffic environment. And so trying to take those particular measures, particularly the idea of moving to a low traffic environment. So what we're saying is we're not moving to a no traffic environment. We're moving towards removing moving traffic that's just using the city to pass through in particular, is the first thing. But still leaving the ability for people to still move around the city and to access, but not in the same way that they would have done before. And part of the reason for that was to one, start to free up some space in the city, to free up some space, particularly for public transport to move, and then for some of the necessary walking and cycling infrastructure to be put in place. But also we had an eye on things like, Metrolink, which will require some pretty extensive roadworks around the city. The various different bus connects measures, the various different corridors, all kind of approach the city but then stop at a certain point. So within the city centre itself, the way to approach it, we don't have enough room to put, all continuous bus lanes everywhere. So the approach really is to reduce the general traffic levels so that buses can move around freely. So some of the measures that were taken, like the North and South Quays, have really meant that, bus journey times have reduced by a third going along those, and they're also far more reliable. So that gives us a good basis for, planning a public transport network. The biggest issue that Dublin Bus would bring up is congestion. If your bus is stuck in congestion, then it's not being productive. It's not, if people decide to use public transport, the least we can do is to try and make their journey as quick and as easy as possible. And that's very much a kind of guiding thing. So the city development plan would be a key element. And you mentioned kind of preserving the city, so one of the main projects that would have come out of the city centre transport plan and would have been referenced in the development plan is obviously the redevelopment of College Green, Dame Street, into a space without vehicles, but a space for people to be able to sit, to linger, to enjoy. And that particular project looks at the fact that we have these amazing buildings there. The old Bank of Ireland, the old Parliament building, Trinity College, and so on around that area. But at the moment, they're kind of hard to see, hard to linger at. So as well as our policies, we obviously have things like the government's policies around, sustainable transport, reducing emissions. And then we have the NTA's, the Greater Dublin Area Transport Strategy, which sets out in broader terms, I suppose, the big projects which will assist the city going forward.
Brilliant. So you touched a bit there on, some of the major considerations when it comes to traffic management. Are there other ones that people the public might not necessarily be aware of that does kind of inform how you manage traffic? Yeah,
well, I suppose, in some ways, part of what we've been doing is kind of trying to start off on the basis that it's a transport system for everybody, not just one user, which would have been very kind of more prevalent that it would have been just for the car users. And to give you an example, we've spent maybe the last 15, 20 years going back and retrofitting pedestrian crossings in at junctions which were never there before. It was all just car orientated, I suppose, to getting the cars through junctions quicker. And obviously when we give time for pedestrians, we reduce the amount of time we have for cars. So that in turn causes some issues.
Yeah. But so there's that balance that's needed.
Well, there is that balance.
We all use the city.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that we would have, allowed a situation to grow up where, back in the day, the junction that was the most dangerous in Dublin was actually O'Connell Street, Abbey Street.
Wow, okay.
And this was before the Lewis or before Connell Street was changed. So to give you an example, when I joined City Council, the actual number of fatalities in the city, there was 52 people killed in the city, of which 30 of them were pedestrians.
Jeepers, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest clusters was at Middle Abbey Street and O'Connell Street, with vehicles turning left because there was no pedestrian lights.
Okay.
Wow. So it's really hard to think back now when you look at O'Connell Street and you think it's so kind of reasonably pedestrian friendly. It used to be a lot different, and the city used to be a lot different. So of course people say to us, "Oh, you're taking time away from me. You're taking space away." It's not. I don't think it's taking it away. It's trying to balance it. It's trying to give it to all the users of the city, and there's a big difference that you make when you do put a safe, controlled crossing in somewhere. Suddenly there's a route that people, like kids, can walk to school by themselves. Things like that. So there's a whole balance that needs to be struck. So very often when we're looking at it, we're trying to maintain a balance. We're trying to say, we do have to. More people come into the city by public transport than any other means. The state pays, for the public transport system, and yet, if we leave that public transport system, such as the bus service, stuck in traffic, it's kind of like, we're all trying to do something, and if you're leaving it stuck in traffic, then what happens is people lose faith in the bus. They think it's going to take me too long, it's not reliable, so on and so forth. So that's a huge portion of what we do as well, is to try and rectify that balance.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually on that, I would like to bring in the whole idea of the kind of public consultation piece, I suppose. And I think this is where like transport service requests would kind of come in. But yeah, how would that kind of work in terms of like hearing from the public, their suggestions for traffic, maybe, complaints might come in, or how does all of that side of it work?
Yeah, well, I suppose we don't really have much problem hearing from the public, because the public do tend to engage with us, and whether that's in the form of coming through the councillors, whether it's in the form of coming through the various online forms, or whether it's the case we have a 24-hour control centre where people can ring up and, if there's a particular problem, they can lodge it at that. So there's kind of multiple ways that people come through to us, and it's kind of interesting. As I say, the mood of the public, I think, has kind of changed quite considerably. So to give you an example, like when we came out in 2015 with the idea of doing College Green initially, and I suppose the first public consultation we ran on it, I think it was about 58% of people disagreed. Right. So by 22, when we ran it again, 90% of people agreed with it.
Okay.
So there was quite a radical shift, and sometimes when you're proposing something, you have to kind of go, okay, time isn't right for it. It's the right proposal. We have to kind of, maybe put in something that isn't quite as far reaching or whatever, because time will kind of catch up with it, and it will be the right thing to do. So back in 2015, we proposed, what we've completed on the quays, the North and South Quays, and nobody liked it. So we, I suppose, compromised by just extending some of the bus lanes instead. But then when we came back in 23, there was a majority of people now, particularly around the councillors and so on, who saw it as being a necessary measure. And that's why, so it kind of, if you like, it was the same measure 8 years ago, but now actually the right time, the right environment to put it in.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. And would you say it's kind of, environmental factors that kind of, affect people's thoughts on those kind of developments, or like would they be politically swayed? Because it's interesting what you're saying about it has to be the right time to make these proposals.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're always like, it's kind of tricky, because you can sometimes be looking at it from a strategic point of view, if you like, the overall good will be served by this, but very well that maybe within a cluster of areas it won't be necessarily better for them. Okay. And so that's a kind of balance in terms of what people kind of think now. I suppose, as I say, going back to COVID, I think people had started to get a better appreciation of the city. And one of the things during COVID, like we started to put in some additional space at bus stops. We put in some temporary cycle tracks. We did all that kind of things. And we put one along the quays, out from Forecourts all the way up to Cable Street Bridge. And when we put it in first, the astonishing thing was that there was so many people walking on it, because you forget how many people actually live in the city centre. So when you had that 2-kilometre radius, suddenly you had all these people whose exercise was actually just walking in the city along the quays. Absolutely. And in actual fact, when we looked at it, we actually broadened it. So we actually widened it, so we had a cycle track and an extra space for people to walk. And, because again, people are living in the city, so you want to go somewhere to have your walk when you're constrained. It's important that the city centre is actually somewhere that people can live and actually make a life with all the different things you want to do. So I do think people did think that was quite a game changer. Also, as I say, when people are working from home in particular, they're more in their neighbourhood. They're probably taking exercise more in their neighbourhood, and so we see more people who are thinking, well, what could we do here? Can we have the greening? So the park's strategy for greening, our kind of strategy for putting in things like bike bunkers and so on to make it easier for people to use bikes who aren't, who are living in houses that you can't bring the bike into. All those kind of things are designed to, I suppose, try and make it easier for people to live in the city, while also knowing, that we're also battling the fact that, with house prices and rent and so on, it's a tricky thing as well. But having said that, a lot of the policies, particularly in the development plan, are kind of around that notion that if you're in the city should be a good place to be, and not just somewhere to drive through or park, drive through as quickly as possible, and use it to go somewhere else. And that's the whole basis of city centre transport plan, is to try and remove some of that attractiveness of just driving through.
Absolutely. And I love that idea of the city kind of growing and developing with the people. I think that's absolutely lovely. What about the traffic management and incident centre there? Because you mentioned that as kind of a point of call where the public can go to.
Yeah, so we have a 24-hour traffic control centre, and I suppose it's a kind of multifunction one. It's open all the time, 7 days a week, and even on Christmas Day, and it's a point of reference for, as I say, we have about 850 sets of traffic lights within the Dublin City area, but we also have about another 400 that we manage through arrangements with other local authorities. So we've big network. We've a lot of automated systems that pick up when things go wrong and automatically report it and so on. But the traffic control centre will be there to monitor what's going on a full-time basis. If there's accidents, if there's incidents, but also if serves as a point of contact for all our services as well. So at 5:00 in the evening, all the services in the City Council then go through the traffic incident room. So dangerous buildings, anything to do with roads, all our housing tenants and so on also will contact that centre. So that's what I'm saying. It's quite a multifunction centre. But it's backed up then with all our engineering, intelligent transport people whose kind of job is to manage the system, and the control centre provides us with an opportunity to have a 24-hour presence, but also then to act as the go-between between our contractors, our staff, and then ultimately the public as well. So the public can ring in, it's a free phone number, and they can dial in if there's a particular problem, if they want something looked at, etc. So that's a key route into it. And I suppose as we move towards what will be a prolonged series of roadworks along many of our major routes, to do with the Bus Connects corridors, to do with Metrolink and so on, we see this facility as being quite an important element. So we're just in the process of kitting out a newer, larger centre to actually allow us to better manage the demands that are going to be on us over the next number of years.
Brilliant. You mentioned public lighting earlier. Actually, I wasn't aware that you guys were kind of over that. So yeah, are there areas that your department are responsible for that people might not necessarily be aware of? Actually, are you guys over parking as well, or
yes.
is that elsewhere?
Yes.
Yeah, there are lots of kind of little niche areas.
There are
like
lots
that.
There's lots of different areas, and I suppose public lighting and our electrical services people are quite important. Because I suppose the reason traffic and public lighting, I suppose, are put together is that, they're both elements to allow people to move safely in the city. Yeah, so we're very connected, both in terms of what they do, what the traffic department do, but also then in the overall kind of context of the city. So lighting along the roads, lighting along the streets, really, really important to have good lighting across the city. It does make people feel safer. It is safer for people when they're driving to have those well lit areas. And public lighting is a really interesting part of the City Council, because they're what you might call a pure, almost like a pure technical department, where they They do their own design implementation. They use contractors, but they also have their direct labour force who are really, really good at maintaining what's there. And they also have a really, what I'd call quite a passion for, maintaining the historic elements of the public lighting infrastructure, the old historical public lighting columns and so on. So at the moment we're engaged in a whole big citywide project to upgrade all the street lightings to LED for reduced energy use and reduced cost and so on. But as part of that, we've been taking the opportunity to redo some of the heritage areas. So over the years, like even on the South Quays, as heritage columns would have either got knocked down or had to be removed, what would have been put in was the kind of cheap and cheerful ones. So as part of this project, we've been going back and actually putting the correct columns in there. And the interesting thing is a lot of the columns would be, maybe 100 years old at this stage. But the design for them is actually still, we have an Italian foundry with the exact design that was for the original ones. So they can make, we call them replicas, but it's probably fair to say that they're actually the exact same. So they get made and shipped over as to really make those kind of iconic ones with the shamrock scroll and so on, to ensure that we keep those as where they should be in the historical areas. So we've put back, I think it's so far we've put back about 180 columns that had been removed for the wrong reasons, or people didn't have the money to go back and put them in, and that's made quite a change with the different lighting. And they also do things like they maintain the lighting on the bridges, O'Connell Bridge, the iconic kind of Capel Street bridge with the dolphins and so on. So it's a really I think in some ways kind of unique department in that they do have this massive role across the city. There's 44,000 streetlights in Dublin City that they're responsible for, a huge number. But they also do really strive to take care of the historical elements that they have. And that's what I said, even this project, which on the face of it is a modernisation project, is actually taking the opportunity to really kind of look after the heritage.
Brilliant. And the parking as well, you mentioned.
Yeah, so parking is again, I suppose, inextricably linked up with roads and how the use of the road. So I guess, within the City Council, we used to have quite a simple department, which is called the Roads and Traffic Department, right? And the Roads Department was our roads design, road construction and road maintenance. And then obviously the traffic did everything else. Yeah. And then we became the Environment and Transportation Department, which dragged in a whole lot of other things. But in essence, whenever you look at a kind of road, it's the roads and traffic. It's the people who build it, maintain it, which are one half of what we do, I suppose, in the Roads Department. And then the Traffic Department then look after the use of the road when it's been built, or as the built heritage, I suppose. So within that, it's looking at how people are parking and what the requirements for parking are. A lot of dealing with residential parking, and then you have kind of illegal parking. We have the parking enforcement. So it's quite a big area. We have the pay and display. And we also then have the issue of trying to cope with illegal parking, people parking in footpaths, people parking in bus lanes, people parking on cycle tracks. So it's again quite a big area of activity for us to, and again, it's kind of going back to the notion that if you, if we set out the parking, then people have, should park responsibly. To park responsibly, then it leaves the way free for the movement of traffic and particularly the movement of public transport.
Right. It feels like, Brendan, we're only like scratching the surface and there's more and more we're discovering. So we'll probably have to bring you on for a part 2, to be honest with you. But I do have just a few more questions before we wrap up here. Can you tell me a bit about schools and traffic management and that kind of relationship? Sure.
Schools are a really important part of what we actually do. So one of the other things that we do is provide the school warden service. So your lollipop person outside the school is again a service that traffic provides, and we do a number of different things with schools because I suppose we do have a section which is kind of dealing with what we call behavior change, like trying to get people to think of alternative ways of moving in the city. And, it's important for us to, first of all, try and make sure that kids are safe if they decide to walk or cycle to school. That's a really key thing. So as part of that, we have the whole rollout of school zones, which you probably would have seen with these lovely coloured pencils outside schools, which are designed to stop people parking on footpaths and making it safer for kids they provide protection for the kids to actually walk along. We do safe routes to school as well, where we try and look at the approaches to schools and see. We've been trialling school streets where during the times of the school opening, so maybe half an hour or an hour beforehand, the street is actually closed to cars, and the kids can then cycle safely to it, and then parents will have to drop their kids either by walking, cycling, or parking and walking with them. But I suppose, as part of all that, we would be doing things like putting in cycle parking, in schools, working with the schools on these various different initiatives. And we also now have the mobility school, as well. So it's kind of, we really are, we have quite a few people actually in the traffic department whose job is to liaise with schools, to work with schools in various different initiatives. And then we obviously have this huge number. We have about 250 school wardens throughout the city. So quite a big number of people out every day trying to make sure people cross the road safely. And they do a really good job. Unfortunately, it has to be said, we've more and more incidents of people either driving at them or verbally abusing them, which just seems incomprehensible when their job is to just help kids cross the road to get to school. So schools are a really, really, really strong part of what we're trying to do. Okay,
great. You've kind of touched on quite a few, developments in technology that kind of inform your work. But yeah, have there been any others that we haven't kind of touched on in recent years that have kind of, made these big shifts? Well,
I suppose the big issues that we're trying to ponder at the moment is the kind of autonomous cars, and what they will actually mean in the city. And so, both working with the department to look at what legislative changes are needed to allow them to start operating here, and then also what they will mean. So we're kind of familiar with the notion now of the robo taxi, going around the city. We may be still a little way away from that here, but I do think it's going to come. We also have the in some places the autonomous shuttles, which help to bring people maybe to a transportation node. So it's going to radically kind of shake up how people to move around the city. Not it's been one of these technologies that's been 5 years away for the last 10 years, right? I think it's actually it is getting closer and closer, and we'll start to see some impacts. And I mean, to give you an example, more and more of the cars that you buy, if you buy a most up-to-date car at the moment, it's got various different components in it which allow it to start to move towards being autonomous. So a lot of them will have fully equipped with radars, the cameras, but they also then have some lane tracking, so they keep your car in the lanes, they automatically dip your headlights. So there's a lot of autonomy starting to creep into cars, and that will increase. So the challenge, I suppose, for any cities when they look at that is well, how can we use that to benefit us? And then what are the downsides? Is there a downside in how they react with pedestrians and cyclists? So that's a really big area that has been looked at and worked on, and I think it's still 5 years away, but but that's a real challenge that will bring quite a different change in the city.
Absolutely, it is exciting though. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. So
yeah,
it's cool.
it is, and as I say, it has a lot of benefits. I mean, the fact that people could, who may not be able to drive at the moment, could have a self-driving vehicle that will safely take them everywhere is quite exciting as well. It's just we have to keep an eye on what way it's actually going to be implemented, and And that's the challenge.
Of course. The Metrolink has come up a couple of times today. What's the latest with that?
Well, I suppose the latest with it is that it does have planning permission, which is a pretty positive step. They're currently waiting to see if anybody takes them to court in a judicial review. So, but if none of that happens, then the whole Metrolink project gets really geared up to start doing some enabling works towards the end of 2026, and then the actual start the construction of the stations and putting in the tunnel boring machine as we go through 28, 29. So yeah, it's been long planned. So hopefully we'll see it this time.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. Brendan, we're going to have to leave it there because we have gone over time. I feel like I could talk to you all day long about this area, though. Like I said earlier, just scratching the surface. So we will have to have you on again. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Brendan, for coming on What's the Story Dublin.
Thanks very much, Neil. Thank you.
And thanks again to today's guest, Brendan O'Brien. I'd also like to extend my thanks to our audio engineer and editor, Robert Fay. This podcast was produced by myself, Deirdre Malumbi, and Michael Ryan, and recorded in the Central Library Studio. Be sure to spread the word if you're enjoying What's the Story Dublin, and to like and subscribe for future episodes. Slán go fóill.